Ethan did not feel the freezing October rain. He barely registered the sharp stitch in his side as he rounded the final corner, the scent of expensive food and damp concrete filling his lungs. All that mattered was the glowing red number on his cheap digital watch. 8:17 p.m. 16 minutes. 16 minutes was precisely the amount of time that cost him everything the first time around. He had sworn, kneeling over the wreckage of his life 2 years in the future, that he would never miss this moment again. He shoved the heavy oak door of the Seraphim open. The small bell above the frame jangled, a tiny, mocking sound swallowed by the gentle murmur of conversation. His eyes desperately scanned the dimly lit, golden-hued room for the familiar booth by the large front window. He found it instantly. Mia was there, wearing the pale blue dress he remembered, her hair pulled back in the simple style he loved. She looked beautiful, and the chair reserved for him, the chair he had run through traffic, cheated death, and bent time itself to occupy, was filled. The man facing her was immaculate. Adrian Mercer, dark suit, impeccable posture, a casual confidence that screamed stability. He leaned across the small table, his expression warm and attentive, listening to Mia with the focus Ethan had never been able to summon. Mia was laughing. It was not the strained, polite smile she offered when she was trying to placate him. It was genuine, effortless, and entirely aimed at Adrian. Ethan staggered backward, the cold air from the doorway rushing in behind him. He hadn't just arrived too late. He had arrived precisely at the moment the future collapsed. Only this time, he was a silent ghost watching his own replacement. Adrian gently reached out, his hand resting briefly on Mia's wrist. Intimately, easily. The second chance was supposed to grant redemption. But here, the past was already moving without him, leaving him exactly where he started, on the outside looking in. He stared at Adrian and Apos, S hand covering Mia and Apos, S, feeling the devastating reality of his failure. How had he been given the reset button, only to miss the mark again? He had to go back further. He had to understand how this perfect second chance had dissolved into a repeat of the worst night of his life. Ethan Cole woke up to the silence of a life he had already buried. The familiar, slightly musty scent of his old bachelor apartment clung to the air. Sunlight, thin and pale, slanted through the window blinds, illuminating dust motes suspended above the worn rug. He sat up abruptly, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The sheets felt foreign, too heavy, too real. His eyes immediately darted toward the nightstand. There, staring back at him with an unnerving, stationary certainty, was his digital alarm clock. It read, 7:15 a.m., Tuesday, October 12th. He was back. He had done it. The date was a precise, cruel joke. October 12th, the day of the dinner. The day he had, in the original timeline, destroyed everything by failing to show up. A cold, hard knot formed in his stomach, quickly replaced by a surge of overwhelming relief and fierce purpose. This time, the future would be different. This time, Mia would look at him with hope, not resignation. Ethan swung his legs out of bed. The floorboards creaked under his weight, a sound he hadn't and Apos T heard in the sterile loneliness of his later life. He walked over to the mirror. The man looking back at him was 34, not 39, still carrying the weight of ambition but without the crushing fatigue of 5 years of regret. His hair was slightly messy, his jaw already showing the beginnings of the 5 o'clock shadow he usually ignored. This time, there would be no excuses, no last-minute deals, no desperate pleas from clients. His sole motivation for the next 12 hours was Mia. He spent the morning in an unusual state of meticulous calm. At the office, he moved through his responsibilities with ruthless efficiency. He cleared his schedule. He delegated meetings he had once insisted on leading. He was paranoid about creating a clean, unassailable path to the 7 p.m. reservation at the Obsidian Room. Every action was a preventative measure against the ghost of his past self. Lena Brooks, his executive assistant, walked into his office around 4 p.m., holding a stack of files. Her expression, usually bright, was etched with confusion. And quote, "Ethan, are you feeling all right?" End quote. She asked, her voice low. End quote. "You canceled the quarterly review. That and Oppo's. Never happened." End quote. He looked up, meeting her concerned gaze. Lena, his anchor in the working world, the one person who knew the depth of his eventual failure. End quote. "I'm fine, Lena. Better than fine. Today, nothing is more important than getting out of here on time. Keep the schedule clear. Absolutely clear." End quote. Ethan instructed, tapping his watch face. A cheap digital replacement since the original symbolic clock had been broken years ago. Lena frowned slightly. End quote. "Understood. But Mr. Thompson just called. Said he needs you immediately downstairs. Emergency meeting regarding the Shanghai deal. Something about a compliance failure. It and Oppo's. Mandatory, Ethan." End quote. The calm shattered. The past, or perhaps the universe itself, was pushing back. This meeting was the exact pivot point he had tried to avoid, though the details were slightly different. In the original timeline, it had been a call from a client. Now it was Thompson, his notoriously demanding boss, insisting on an immediate physical presence. End quote. "Tell him I and Oppo's. Am tied up." End quote. Ethan said, already grabbing his jacket. End quote. He sounded serious, Ethan. He said, and I quote, "And Oppo's. If Cole SN and Oppo's. T here in 10 minutes, he can kiss that partnership goodbye. And Oppo's." End quote. The threat was potent, but Ethan understood the true cost of obedience. The partnership was replaceable. Mia was not. End quote. "I am leaving, Lena. If he asks, tell him I was called away on a personal emergency I couldn't in Oppo's. T ignore." End quote. He walked out of his office, the air now thick with the urgency of a ticking clock. He moved quickly down the corridor, feeling the stares of his colleagues. He was abandoning a crisis, prioritizing a life he hadn't and Oppo's. T yet lost. It was 5:10 p.m. He had nearly 2 hours. Plenty of time. He reached the ground floor parking garage, slightly breathless. He fumbled for his keys, but they weren't and Oppo's. T in his usual pocket. A wave of ice flooded his veins. He checked his jacket, his trousers, his desk key fob. Nothing. Ethan ran back to the elevators, stabbing the button for his floor repeatedly. He cursed silently. This had not happened the first time. The timeline was unraveling. He reached his office, scanning the desk surface. He saw the glint of metal near his computer monitor. The keys. He grabbed them, his hand shaking slightly. The delay was only 10 minutes, but in the compressed reality of time travel, 10 minutes felt like an hour. It was 5:35 p.m. when he finally pulled his car out of the parking garage. The drive to the Obsidian Room, a high-end restaurant near the waterfront, usually took 40 minutes during peak traffic. Now, the roads were a nightmare. Red brake lights stretched into an endless river ahead. Ethan gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. He checked his phone. No messages from Mia yet. That was good. In the future, the first message had arrived at 6:45 p.m. End quote. "Are you okay? Still coming?" End quote. He needed to be there before 6:45 p.m. He needed to be seated, waiting, demonstrating his commitment before the seeds of doubt could sprout in her mind. The minutes bled away, marked by the slow crawl of the vehicle in front of him. 6 p.m. 6:15 p.m. He pounded the steering wheel in frustration. He was trapped by the sheer inertia of the present day, unable to accelerate history. At 6:30 p.m., the traffic finally broke free, allowing him to speed toward the restaurant district. He drove aggressively, ignoring speed limits, focused entirely on the image of Mia and Oppo's hopeful, tired face. He pulled up outside the Obsidian Room at 6:58 p.m. He was close. He was almost on time. He was critically earlier than his past self had been. A triumphant, desperate breath escaped him. He had won the first battle. He tossed the valet his keys, not waiting for a ticket, and sprinted toward the ornate glass doors of the restaurant. The air inside was warm, rich with the scent of expensive wine and refined cooking. The maitre d' Oppo's recognized him immediately. End quote. Mr. Cole, you made it, end quote. The maitre d' said with a polite smile, already moving toward the back of the room. End quote. Your reservation is waiting, end quote. Ethan followed, his eyes scanning the tables, looking for the familiar silky blue dress, the delicate blonde coiffure. He saw their table, the prime booth they always requested, intimate and candlelit. And then he stopped dead, his frantic momentum dissolving into cold, hard dread. The table was not empty. Mia was there, and she was not alone. She was laughing, a genuine, easy sound, leaning slightly toward the man sitting opposite her. The man, impeccably dressed in a dark, well-tailored suit, was holding her gaze with an intensity that spoke of immediate, profound connection. His presence in that space, in that specific chair, was an abomination. The maitre d' paused, sensing Ethan's sudden paralysis. End quote. Is something wrong, Mr. Cole? End quote. Ethan Kuden and Apos. To speak. His breath hitched, the memory of his abandoned future crashing into the painful reality of this usurped past. He knew the man instantly. Adrian Mercer, confident, controlled, the antithesis of the chaotic life Ethan offered. Adrian, who was supposed to be a distant future complication, was here now, sitting in the very place Ethan had risked everything to claim. The clock had not just run out. The past had replaced him. It was 7:02 p.m. He had missed the precise window. The inciting incident was complete. He had failed to control time, and the world had moved on without him. The chilled air outside the restaurant hit Ethan like a physical accusation. He moved past the host stand, his eyes locked on the corner booth. Adrian was leaning slightly toward Mia, his expression attentive, his hand gesturing subtly as he spoke. Mia was smiling. Not the forced, polite smile Ethan had grown used to seeing, but a genuine curve of her lips that reached her tired eyes. Ethan felt the oxygen thin in his lungs. This wasn't Apos. Just a man sitting in his seat. This was the future he had traveled back to erase, manifesting faster and more efficiently. He strode toward the table. Every step was a desperate attempt to rewind the last 5 minutes. Mia. His voice was rough, an intrusion into the warm atmosphere. Mia's smile instantly vanished, replaced by a guarded neutrality. She looked up, her fingers tightening around the stem of her water glass. Adrian turned slowly, his face politely inquisitive. He recognized Ethan immediately, not from acquaintance, but from the raw anxiety etched on Ethan's face. Ethan, Mia said, her tone flat. You're here. I'm here, Ethan confirmed, focusing solely on Adrian. I apologize. I seem to have mistaken this table. Adrian raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement crossing his features. No mistake, Mr. Cole. I believe Mia and I were expecting you to be elsewhere. He paused, allowing the implication of lateness to settle. Adrian Mercer, by the way. Ethan ignored the extended hand. We actually have plans, Adrian. Private plans. Mia pushed her chair back slightly. Ethan, stop. Adrian is a guest. We were just finishing up. Finishing up? Ethan's control snapped. Mia, this was our night. This was the conversation we needed to have. We did have a conversation. Ethan, Mia countered, her voice dropping, signaling the danger of a public scene. For the last 6 months, we've been having the same conversation. And every time, something more important comes up. She glanced at Adrian, then back at Ethan. Adrian was just reminding me that some people value punctuality. The blunt comparison cut deep. Ethan had traveled through time, risked sanity, and still arrived only to be judged against a basic courtesy Adrian offered effortlessly. Can we talk outside? Now, Ethan pleaded with his eyes. Mia hesitated, looking at Adrian with a silent apology. Adrian stood smoothly. I'll wait here, Mia. Take your time. Adrian's calm deference made Ethan look like a frantic teenager. Mia followed Ethan out onto the small, quiet patio area reserved for waiting guests. The air was cold, fitting the sudden chill between them. What is this, Ethan? She demanded. You show up over an hour late. demanding I leave a professional acquaintance and act like I'm the one out of line? He's not just a professional acquaintance, is he? Ethan knew the answer before she spoke. Mia sighed, running a hand through her hair. No, he's someone who has been listening, someone who shows up, someone who doesn't and oppose. Treat me like an afterthought. I was delayed. I hit traffic that wasn't there the first time. Something changed. Mia, you have to believe me. I fought to get here. You fought? Ethan, every day feels like a fight with you. I need stability, not a war to prove I matter. He knew he couldn't reveal the truth about the time jump. He had to pivot, admit the immediate failure, and offer a path forward. I messed up, again, but I know why. It was the same reason as before. I was trying to manage too many things. I swear I can fix it. You already had your chance to fix it, Ethan. Months ago. Ethan saw the genuine finality in her eyes, the exhaustion of trying. He knew he was losing her faster in this reality than he had in the original timeline. His desperate attempt to control the past had only accelerated his loss. He stepped closer, reaching for her hands, but she pulled them away. Wait, he said suddenly, a realization hitting him based on a detail he'd overlooked when he rushed out of his apartment earlier. I know why I was late this time. It wasn't just the traffic diversion, Mia. It was the clock repair. She frowned. The clock? The antique clock your mother gave us. Yes, I left it with the repair shop this morning. I remembered you mentioning weeks ago that it stopped, and I promised I'd take care of it before tonight. I went across town to pick it up because I thought showing you I remembered the small things would prove I was committed to the big things. Mia stared at him, bewildered. Ethan, I told you to take it next week. It wasn't a priority. You missed the dinner because you prioritized a broken clock over the person who was waiting for you. The realization crashed over Ethan. The small change he had made, trying too hard to demonstrate commitment, was precisely what led to his delay. He hadn't and oppose. Just been late. He had misprioritized the gesture over the genuine connection, repeating the very pattern that had destroyed their relationship in the future. The past hadn't and oppose. Been actively malicious. He had simply been himself, only worse under the pressure of the time jump. He wasn't and oppose. Fighting fate. He was fighting his own inherent flaws. Mia, I am so sorry. I didn't and oppose. See the irony until just now. She looked past him, back toward the glowing window of the restaurant, where Adrian was casually checking his phone, exuding patience. I'm tired of being an irony, Ethan, she whispered. I need to go back inside. No, wait. Don and oppose. Go back in there. We need to leave. We need to talk about what we mean to each other. We already did that. She started walking back toward the door. In a moment of pure panic, Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her back with too much force. Please, I came back for you. The glass door of the restaurant opened just as Adrian stepped out. Adrian saw the grip, the fear on Mia's face, and the desperation on Ethan's. His composure finally cracked, replaced by cold anger. I think that's enough, Cole. Adrian stepped between them, establishing himself as a protector, a barrier Ethan could not cross. She said she needs to go inside. Ethan looked from Adrian's controlled fury to Mia's retreating figure. He was the villain in this scene, and Adrian was the savior. Stay out of this, Mercer. You Don and oppose. Know what's happening. Adrian placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, guiding her back toward the entrance. I know what's happening. A woman is trying to enjoy her evening, and a man is causing a scene. Ethan watched the door close behind them. He was shut out, standing alone on the cold patio. His mission was in ruins. He had traveled across time only to prove that without changing his fundamental approach to life, he would always be late, always miss the point, and always prioritize the wrong thing. His hand went to his wrist, where the old leather strap of his watch felt heavy. He looked down at the broken mechanism, the hands frozen at the exact moment of his original failure. The symbology was brutal. Time was broken, and he was the one who couldn't and oppose. Fix it. He pulled out his phone, needing external validation, a sign that the future wasn't and oppose. T completely lost. He needed Lena. He dialed her number. The phone rang twice before a curt, unfamiliar voice answered. Hello? This is Lena's line, but I and Appos am covering for her. She's out of town for a conference this week. Is there a message? Ethan froze. Lena wasn't and Appos. T's supposed to be out of town. She was supposed to be his anchor, the one who pulled him back from the edge in the original timeline. Another deviation. Another consequence of his intervention. He hung up without speaking, the weight of total isolation pressing down on him. The second chance had not just failed. It had amplified the distance between him and everyone he cared about. He was utterly alone, watching the golden light of the restaurant hold the woman he loved, secured by the steady presence of the man he was supposed to replace. He hadn't and Appos. T just lost the past. He was actively destroying his present. The escalation was complete. Ethan realized the true enemy wasn't an Appos, T. Adrian or fate, but the unchanging version of himself. The brassy scent of the restaurant seemed to cling to Ethan's throat. He stepped toward the table. Mia looked up first. Her expression shifted instantly from soft amusement with Adrian to a startled, hard shock when she saw Ethan standing over them. And quote, Ethan and quote. She managed, the name a whisper tainted with exhaustion. Adrian simply turned, maintaining his pleasant smile, though his eyes were sharp, calculating. He stood slightly, extending a hand to Ethan, a gesture of faux politeness that felt like a challenge. And quote, you must be Ethan. Adrian Mercer, and quote, he said smoothly. Ethan ignored the hand. The moment felt surreal, rehearsed, yet violently real. This was the moment that shouldn't exist. This was the future he had traveled through time to stop. And quote, we need to talk, Mia. Outside. Now, and quote. Ethan commanded, his voice tight. Mia stiffened. And quote, no, Ethan. We Don and Appos. T. We had plans tonight, remember? Plans you decided wherein and Appos. T important enough to keep. And quote. And quote. It and Appos. It's not about the plans. It's about everything. It's about the future, Mia. It's about the life we had. End quote. He knew how desperate he sounded, how unhinged. He glanced at Adrian, who was watching the scene unfold with quiet, clinical interest. End quote. The life we had is gone, Ethan, and I'm trying to build a new one. I think you should leave. End quote. End quote. You Don and Appos. T understand the gravity of this moment, end quote. Ethan pleaded, leaning closer. End quote. If you stay here, if you choose him, end quote. Adrian cut in, his voice measured and deep. End quote. It sounds like you are threatening Mia, Ethan. I suggest you step back. End quote. End quote. You have no idea who I am, end quote. Ethan snarled at Adrian. End quote. I know enough, end quote. Adrian responded, leaning back comfortably. End quote. I know that I showed up on time. I know that when I make a commitment, I keep it. I know that Mia deserves someone who sees her as the priority, not the inconvenience. End quote. The words sliced through Ethan's conviction. They were the truth, distilled and delivered by his rival. He looked at Mia. She wasn't looking at Adrian. She was looking at the pain in Ethan's eyes, but she wasn't and Appos. T softening. End quote. He and Appos. S wrong, Mia. I love you. End quote. Ethan whispered, the noise of the busy restaurant fading into a distant hum. End quote. If you loved me, you would have been here. End quote. Mia finally said, her voice dropping, filled with finality. End quote. Not just tonight, Ethan. For the last 5 years. You keep saying you want to build a life with me, but every time the choice comes down to me or the next big deal, I know where I rank. The dinner was just the excuse, Ethan. The real problem is you. End quote. The realization hit Ethan with the force of a physical blow. He hadn't traveled back in time to fix one night. He had traveled back to confront the man he was, the man who valued achievement over connection. He looked at Adrian, and Adrian wasn't and Appos. T the antagonist. Adrian was the consequence. End quote. You and Appos. Rewrite, end quote. Ethan said, and the admission tasted like ash. Adrian blinked, momentarily surprised. Mia's guarded expression faltered slightly. And quote, "It wasn't Appos. Tea just the dinner. The dinner was the last domino. I was always late, Mia. Always distracted. Always looking at the clock thinking about what I missed, instead of looking at you, right in front of me." End quote. He stepped back, his body language shifting from confrontation to surrender. He saw the timeline ripple before his eyes. The moment he returned to fix was already fixed, but not the way he intended. The universe hadn't and Appos. T given him a second chance to redo the event. It had given him a chance to see the true nature of his failure. End quote. "I went back in time," end quote. Ethan confessed, the words pouring out, knowing they sounded insane, but needing her to understand the depth of his regret. End quote. "I lived the future without you, and it destroyed me. I thought if I could just get here on time, I could fix it. But I realized, when I saw him sitting in my chair, I didn't in Appos. T get delayed by traffic or a bad meeting. I was delayed by the kind of man I am. And that kind of man will always be late for you," end quote. Mia looked from him to Adrian, the choice laid bare not between two men, but between the possibility of stability and the guarantee of past heartache. End quote. "I need stability, Ethan," end quote. Mia said quietly. End quote. "I need someone who doesn't in Appos. T need to lose me to realize they want me." End quote. "She didn't in Appos. T stand up. She didn't in Appos. T shout." She simply turned her attention back to Adrian. It was the quietest rejection of his entire life, and it was devastating. Adrian offered a slight, respectful nod to Ethan, not of victory, but of solemn recognition. Ethan looked down at his watch, the watch that had been broken during the jump, symbolizing the time he couldn't and Appos. T control. He finally understood. He couldn't and Appos. T rewind time and swap out the ending. He could only change the next chapter alone. He turned and walked away from the warm lights of the restaurant, back into the cold night air, the heavy realization settling on him. He had lost her again. He had received his second chance, and he had failed, but this time he knew exactly why. He hadn't an Appos. T changed the event, but the event had changed him. This was the end of his journey to fix the past. He lost the woman he loved, twice, just to learn a fundamental truth about himself. The tragic irony was complete. I know that this story is intense, and it in Appos. That's why I share these moments. If you value the truth and like stories that make you think and feel, do the following. Consider subscribing to the channel and comment from which city you are watching. It's the best way to ensure you don't miss the next life lesson. Ethan walked away from the restaurant, the expensive aroma of forgotten food replaced by the biting cold of the morning air. The clock on the nearby bank building read 1:17 a.m. The time didn't in Appos matter anymore. He had arrived late, yes, but he realized he had been late for years. He found a secluded spot near the park, the city noise muffled by the crisp silence of his failure. He clutched the broken watch, the physical symbol of the chaos he had tried to control. He had awakened in the past determined to change a single event, but the past had shown him that event was just a symptom. The disease was him. His confrontation with Mia replayed in his mind. Her weary eyes, the genuine relief in her voice when she spoke to Adrian, the quiet firmness in her decision to stay. He had admitted his faults, confessed the future he lost, but Mia could not be expected to rebuild her present based on his potential regrets. She needed a man who was already there, who was already stable, who already saw her worth. Adrian was not a villain. Adrian was a solution. Ethan understood the true nature of his second chance. It wasn't a chance to recapture what he lost. It was a chance to finally do the right thing. True love, he realized, was not selfish. It wasn't about redemption achieved at the expense of the beloved's peace. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking slightly. He typed a dozen messages, deleting each one. They were all desperate, self-serving promises of change. He knew she would read them and perhaps, out of habit or pity, she might waver. He could use his knowledge of the future to his advantage, to manipulate the moment. But if he did that, he would prove that the core of Ethan Cole, the selfish man who prioritized the deal over the heart, had never changed at all. He finally typed a single, final sentence to Mia. It was devoid of history, devoid of expectation, entirely focused on her. And quote, "I wish you nothing but happiness. Go find your peace." End quote. He hit send. Then, slowly and deliberately, he blocked her number. He removed the ability to check on her, to interfere, or to return. He destroyed the lifeline to the future he had desired. He was committing the ultimate act of letting go, proving his transformation by sacrificing the reward he traveled through time to claim. He stayed on the bench until dawn broke, the light washing over the city he no longer belonged to. He didn't wait for the time warp to pull him back to the ruined future. He simply accepted the new reality he had forged right there. He found a small apartment on the other side of the state, started a new life, a life where work stayed at work and people mattered. He never sought contact, only receiving updates occasionally through Lena, who, months later, sent him a brief photo. It was an announcement. Mia and Adrian were engaged. The sight brought a sharp, clean pain. A pain that was bearable because it was earned. It was the price of his salvation. He had lost her, yes, but he had ensured her happiness. And in doing so, he finally became the man worthy of the love he had thrown away. The man he failed to be in the first timeline. The profound truth of Ethan's journey, and the lesson he ultimately paid for with his heart, was this. Time travel doesn't fix a person's character. It only grants perspective. When given a true second chance, many focus on correcting the surface mistake, the late arrival, the misplaced word, the poor decision. But the true healing requires changing the fundamental flaw that caused the mistake in the first place. Ethan tried to correct the schedule, but fate was relentless, ensuring he was late again. Why? Because the universe demanded he see Adrian, the man who represented the stability he refused to offer. The universe forced him to confront the consequence of his actions, not the action itself. He learned that forgiveness starts with self-awareness, and redemption demands sacrifice. Sometimes the highest form of love is not the fight to keep someone, but the strength to release them completely so they can find the path that brings them genuine joy. Ethan achieved redemption, but it was a lonely victory. He saved the woman he loved from further heartbreak, and in doing so, he saved the man he was supposed to become. It's a heavy lesson, one written not in ink, but in the deepest regrets of the human heart. If you are given the opportunity to repair a devastating mistake, you must be prepared to give up everything, even the person you love, if it means securing their peace. Now, I want to know from you. Comment down below. What would have been your choice in my place? Would you have made that sacrifice? And if you like surprising endings, I left another video right here next to me. It's a shocking story of fate and destiny. Click there. I and Appos. LL see you in the next video.